The Atlanta Braves only had 4 pitchers make their debut in 2025, and none of them had a major impact. That should not be the case in 2026. I'll tell you why on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. And if you're watching on or listening on the audio side, you can help out too. Just leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your very first listen of each and every day. I appreciate your support here, and thank you so much for being an everydayer of the podcast. Today's episode, we're going to get back into the minor league side of things after taking a couple of weeks off. I'm going to give you the names of several pitchers who I think could not just debut in 2026, but perhaps have a major impact in 2026. We'll also take a look at the Arizona Fall League, where there is one name for the Atlanta Braves that is getting a lot of attention right now. We'll catch you up with what's happening on the postseason and the latest on the managerial searches happening around the league. Those are starting to heat up a little bit. So a ton to get to on today's episode, which is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. In 2025, the Atlanta Braves had 4 pitchers who made their major league debut. You had Nathan Wiles, you had Hayden Harris, you had Roldy Munoz, and you had Didier Fuentes. None of them really made much of an impact. Fuentes is the only one that threw more than 10 innings, and that was probably 10 innings too many, as they rushed the kid up way too soon. But as much as we talk about, the Braves constantly churning out good pitching prospects, last year, it didn't feel like that was the case because you had Hurston Waldrop kind of break out. You had AJ Smith-Shawver really seemed like he was settling in. So you still had some rookie pitchers that performed well, but those weren't the debuts. Neither of those guys made their debuts last year. But the guys that didn't have much of a major impact. And that's likely going to be the case in 2026. But there are several names, several prospects that the Braves have who I think could have a big impact in 2026. So I'm going to give you several of those names here right now. And the first one, and maybe the most obvious one, or maybe not, I don't know. There's so many that are close that should be up there. But J.R. Ritchie feels like next man up. Surprised that he didn't get a shot in 2025 with how good he was and how aggressive the Braves have been in the past, but maybe they really wanted to save some of those 40-man spots. The righty was the 35th overall pick in 2022, missed most of 2023 and most of 2024 after having Tommy John surgery. His numbers were good in 2024 coming back from the surgery, but he really proved it across 3 levels in 2025. He made 26 starts and 144 innings. He had a 2.64 ERA, a 1.01 whip, a 175 batting average against. Nobody hit him. And a K per 9 of 9 and a walk per 9 of 3.47. Both of those solid numbers right there. And across the board, just great numbers. The only thing that really gives me some pause, and if you wanted to, slow play things a little bit with him, which it seems like maybe they're doing, is that the walk rate did increase as he went up every level. And obviously, as you go up, hitters are going to be more patient. They're going to have a better feel for the strike zone. And so walks are going to go up. It was more around a 4 walk per 9 as he got up to AAA, which is too high. I like to see that number more closer to 3. But again, nobody hit him at any level. Nobody hit him this season. In my opinion, he's got to be the first one up to get a chance in 2026. He's already at AAA, where he had really good numbers. He's just not on the 40-man as of yet, but that all could change. And I even think if you got into spring training, if somebody were to get injured, and obviously depending on what happens in the offseason, I think there's a chance that he could begin this season next year in the Braves rotation. It wouldn't be unheard of to see that. Feels like every year the Braves have 1 or 2 guys that are held back in spring training and are delayed to start the season. And we have a Dylan Dodd, we have a Bryce Elder who get a shot in the rotation to begin the season, if they perform in spring training. So it would not surprise me at all if that were the case, just depending on how things shake out. Everybody healthy, probably not. But again, I think there is a slim chance that we could see that happen. Now, the second name on this list for me is Lucas Braun. Now, Lucas Braun doesn't have the flashiest of stuff and not a prospect that I think gets talked about a lot, but he might be the most consistent and he might be the most dependable. He made 27 starts last year. One of those was he was piggybacking somebody making a rehab assignment. So he didn't technically start the game, but he came in and ended up pitching 6 innings. So essentially 27 starts last year. And he went at least 5 innings in 21 of them. He pitched into the 6th inning in 19 of them. So consistently giving you innings, going deep into a ball game. And over his final 6 starts, the last 3 of those coming at AAA, he went at least 6 innings in all of them and gave up 2 earned or less in all of them. So he got even better as the season went along. And like I said, he finished the year at AAA. So he is right there as well with J.R. Ritchie and others knocking on the door. So I think Lucas Braun is very, very close. I've never been crazy high on Lucas Braun as far as his ceiling goes, but I feel like he has the low floor. For me, and a lot of Braves fans probably aren't going to love hearing this, and I'm not saying he's the same type of pitcher, but just in terms of ceiling and floor, he gives me the same vibes of a Bryce Elder. I think the ceiling is pretty tapped at a number 3-4 starter, but I think the floor is pretty safe as a 5-6, type of starter as well. Somebody that can come up, give you innings, maybe have a good run. I feel like that's who Lucas Braun can be. And I can't wait to go back and watch more of him in the offseason, though, to see if that feeling has changed with what we saw at the end of the year when, like I said, he was fantastic. All right, the next one on this list might be the most obvious because he is already on the 40-man roster, and we've already seen him up with the Braves, but they didn't use him, and I'm still upset about it, and that is Giancarlo Lara. Again, he's on the 40-man, called him up last year, didn't use him, and as much as a bad season as it was, that was the thing that maybe frustrated me more than anything else, just because I wanted to see him get that debut. He pitched in several games last year, as both as a starter and as a reliever. And the problem with Giancarlo Lara is just the control. He's got to get control of his control. And if he does that, I would be shocked we see him, really early next season. We're going to talk about him more in a minute when we get to the Arizona Fall League update. But I really think we'll see him in the bullpen at some point next year. Now, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him to begin 2026 at the minor league level, because I don't think he'll start the year at the big leagues unless he just looks great in the fall league and then he looks great in spring training. I think he'll most likely start next year at the minors, but do they start him out as a starting pitcher, or do they just fully commit to the reliever role? Because last year they kept him as a starter early on, was really struggling with the control. They moved him to a reliever. It took a little bit, but then he finally did get in a rhythm as a reliever, and that control was much better, and he looked dominant, and I was yelling for them to call him up and help out the bullpen. They never did at that point, but then they moved him back into a hybrid kind of opener role where he would start the game, but he'd go 3-4 innings, just depending on how many strikes he was able to throw. I feel like you just got to commit to him as a reliever at this point. Give him 1 inning outings, let him get comfortable with that. And I think he could be one of those dominant arms in your bullpen at some point next season. That's how highly I think of Giancarlo Lara as a reliever. And I get it. It's tempting with that type of stuff to try to, give it your best effort to make him a starter, but it's not like you can't ever convert him back to a starter. Next on the list is Blake Burkhalter. He is Rule 5 eligible this winter, so they'll likely have to add him to the 40-man roster at some point, or he will get picked up. The overall numbers for him last year were solid, both at AA and AAA. He was mostly a reliever at AAA, but the numbers were actually worse. I've always been of the opinion that if you made Blake Burkhalter a reliever, that he could be up in the big leagues, but at least results-wise, wasn't necessarily the case. He struggled a little bit in that reliever role, maybe just trying to make that transition back. I don't know. But I think there's still a good chance that we see him in some capacity next year, whether that is as a starter or a reliever. I think we do see Blake Burkhalter at some point in 2026. And then the final one here is the name that I saw everywhere on social media on Monday, and that is Luke Sinnard. He is gaining a lot of momentum in the Arizona Fall League, which we'll talk about more in a minute. He is turning 23 on Tuesday, the 99th overall pick out of Indiana in 2024, so a bit advanced as a college guy. 16 starts between A and high A last year, a 2.86 ERA, a 1.18 whip, a 213 batting average against, 10.7 K per nine, and a 3.4 walk per nine. Just 72 and a third innings this past season, though, as he missed all of 2024 after having Tommy John surgery, but he is getting more innings in the Arizona Fall League, so probably finish somewhere at about 90 innings this year. And a lot of people are saying that he could be the guy that comes up out of nowhere, that pitching prospect that not many people are talking about. Of course, they're talking about him now, so maybe it's not going to happen. But that pitching prospect that just kind of rises up through the ranks, bypasses everybody, and is at that next ladle, that next level for the Atlanta Braves. Gorov on social media, who follows a lot of Braves prospects, he's has glowing remarks about the stuff for Luke Sinnard, and he's one of those that are mentioning that he could be the guy that just kind of pops out of nowhere. So this is certainly a name to watch. And like I said, he's in the Arizona Fall League right now, only a couple of outings so far and only 5 innings, but it sounds like he is somebody to really watch for next season that could shoot up the ranks, maybe go 4 levels even, and end up with the Braves next season. So we'll talk more about him next, as well as some of the other guys in the Arizona Fall League. We'll get into all of that here next. The NFL season and MLB postseason is here, along with the NFL and NBA starting this week. So there's a lot of sports action happening, and FanDuel is ready to make sure, or FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for it all with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel allows you to play the way that you like, with player props, building same game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. You go to FanDuel.com to check out all the odds. I'm recording right now during the Mariners and Blue Jays games, and it's constantly updating the odds there. The Blue Jays right now at a negative 1.5 favorite as this game is tied as I'm recording right now in the 3rd inning. You can see World Series odds where the Dodgers are the heavy favorites. You got player props to hit a home run, Cal Raleigh at the top of that list right now. And you can see all that over at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Most people can't even name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Me and my wife, we use Monarch Money. It's a great way to budget together. We're getting really close. We're staying on budget this month. I think it's actually going to happen for the first time in a while. Monarch Money helping us get in there and helping us know exactly where we are with the budget each and every month. You can use it too. Just use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. Again, that's code monarchmoney.com. or monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get 50% off your first year. Thank you as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Solely getting caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball. The guys from MLB Game Night, getting caught up with everything happening in the postseason, which could be over here pretty quickly. And we got Game 7 happening on Monday night. Then we'll get our World Series matchup, and who knows? We'll see. It might not take the Dodgers too long to dispatch of whomever they're going to face in the World Series, but they'll get you caught up there. Locked On MLB here the rest of the week at Locked On Braves. We'll get back into our player recaps and previews, looking on the pitching side of things. You got anybody in particular that you want me to talk about? Let me know in the comments section down below. I want to get to some of your listener comments, though. I asked you which pitchers you thought were going to debut in 2026 and have a big impact. I see some here live in the comments section. Mass Boo saying Owen Murphy could fast track. He's one I almost put on here too. I just wonder if they'll go the same route with him as they did with J.R. Ritchie. That first full year coming back from Tommy John just kind of let him let him advance like they did with J.R. Ritchie, but maybe not push him up to the big leagues. We'll see. Obviously, he's great, and he certainly has that potential. But, yeah, he's one that I thought of as well. Garrett Bauman is one that I looked at too, but being a younger guy, I think he still has a few things to work on. I do like him, but I just don't see him making the debut in 2026. Asked you on social media, Matt Olsen-Burner says Ritchie is the obvious one, but apparently this kid in Arizona is killing it as well, talking about Sinnard. Corey Slovich says that specific question. I think it's Burkhalter. I predict that Lopez, Holmes, and Jimenez are all going to underwhelm, and they'll get bullpen contribution from Burkhalter, Lara, and Fuentes. I think that's pretty good call. A chance that one of these guys, in terms of making impact, which is what the question was, it might be one of the guys in the bullpen like Lara or Burkhalter that has the biggest impact. Matt H says Ritchie, he's going to get a velo increase, and he's calm in big moment. So that is certainly a possibility as J-Rod goes deep to give the Mariners the lead here. Braze Paul says the one who knocks hardest. So we'll see who that is. If Lara throws the hardest, so that could be him. Aegon says, does Lara count since he never actually pitched this year? To me, he does not count. So I think he still remains on this list. Mike says Ritchie, Owen Murphy, though innings will be a concern. Kathy G says watch for Luke Sinnard. PJ Sprague says Blake Burkhalter, and Eddie Robbins says Ritchie. So a lot of you agreeing with some of the same names that I had. But the point being, the overall point that I wanted to make with this episode is that there are a lot of starting pitchers who we could see make their debuts in 2026, and a lot of good starting pitchers that I'm excited about. I'm excited about J.R. Ritchie. I'm excited about Lucas Braun. I'm excited about Owen Murphy. I'm excited about Luke Sinnard now. I'm excited about Giancarlo Lara, Blake Burkhalter. I'm excited to see what all these guys can do. And so as we get into the offseason, yes, I very much want them and need them to go out and sign some quality depth at starting pitcher and reliever. But there are also a ton of arms coming up who are ready to get that opportunity. Now, you don't know what they're going to look like, which is why you need to go out and get some proven guys, and why you can't count on these guys to come up and just immediately have an impact. Look at a Hurston Waldrop, where it took him a little bit of time, took him a mechanical change to get there even. AJ Smith-Shawver, who was really young and came up, taking him some time before he finally got there. Even a Didier Fuentes, who did debut last year, we saw him struggle, but obviously has really good stuff. Could he have an impact next season as well? I certainly think he can. So there are just a lot of pitchers right now for the Atlanta Braves. And the other thing too is all these pitchers I'm talking about that are knocking on the door, does that lead to some potential trades? I think definitely. I think if you're looking at other teams who are really in need of pitching right now, it may be one way for the Braves to find that big bat in the outfield. Do you trade a Owen Murphy or a J.R. Ritchie? Do you trade a Lucas Braun or a Blake Burkhalter? If a team that's really looking for a pitching, well, you think you could be willing to give a little bit of that up if you're able to find the right bat for your team and the right fit for your team. So that's something to think about as well as we talk about all these guys who are knocking on the door and potentially ready soon. We've discussed in the past a lot how the Braves have done a great job of drafting and developing pitching. And this is why I've said that they should continue to do that, because one, you always need pitching, but everybody always needs pitching, especially in today's game with all the injuries. And the Braves, while they haven't done a great job on the hitting side of things, at least depth-wise, obviously you just had a Drake Baldwin come up and others, you can still trade for that talent through the depth of arms that you have. So that's another thing to watch as you go through this offseason. Now, I wanted to give a quick Arizona Fall League update here because I haven't done so, and they're about 2 weeks into the season. The Glendale Desert Dogs, which is where the Braves players are playing, they're just 3-6. They're last in the league, but they got a -3 run differential. So maybe they've just been a little bit unlucky, and maybe they're about to go off. Nacho Alvarez in 6 games, he's 6 for 19. That's a .316 average, a double, 8 walks to 5 strikeouts, and 3 stolen bases. We know the guy can hit. It's just, is there going to be enough power there for him to be an everyday big leaguer, especially if he's going to be playing third base? And if he is playing third base, it's probably not going to be for the Braves. I was curious to see when they sent him to the Fall League, do they try him at shortstop again? Obviously, that's dependent on some of the other players on that team. But no, he's played third base or he's DH in every game that he's played in. So I think the door is officially completely closed for Nacho Alvarez at shortstop, if anybody was still hoping for that. Patrick Loaiza has played in 8 games. He's 6 for 30, just a 200 average, but a double, 7 walks to 7 strikeouts, and 6 stolen bases. Actually had an interview while he was there at the Arizona Fall League, talking about his speed after he swiped 79 bases this past season. He has the second most steals right now in the AFL, right behind Enrique Bradfield, who had 80 grade speed coming out of Vanderbilt. I think you look at Kawhi, and he had a really good season in the minors. He's showing you some stuff here at the Arizona Fall League. I think there's a role for him in the future, and it's probably that Eli White role as a pinch runner, defensive replacement late in games. I think that's probably where Kawhi is headed. Jim Jarvis, the guy who they got at the trade deadline for Rafael Montero, he had a decent showing at Gwinnett, or at Columbus rather, after coming over, and then played a few games at Gwinnett to end the season. But in the Arizona Fall League in 5 games, he's just 3 for 19 at the plate, but does have a home run, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, and 2 stolen bases. Chris Clegg, a guy who covers a lot of prospects for fantasy purposes, a guy that I follow, he sends out a daily Arizona Fall League recap that gives the top 5 exit velos, the top 5 whiff numbers from each and every day. And I checked that, and the only names I've seen on there so far, not Nacho, unfortunately, but Kawhi had a 110.1 mile per hour exit velo on 1014. And then Jim Jarvis has been on that list twice so far. He had a 109.5 on 1015 and a 109.1 on 10.7. And I already mentioned he had the home run. So not the guy that I would be expecting to see the high exit velocities from and the home run already in what's generally a more pitcher-friendly league in that Arizona Fall League. So that's maybe something of note for Jim Jarvis. I don't think he's going to be, just from my looks at him in college when he was at Alabama, I watched him a good bit. I don't think he's a shortstop long-term. I don't think he's going to hit enough to be a big league player. At best is probably going to be a bench utility guy. But good to see him putting up some exit velos and some power. On the pitching side, Luke Sinnard, the name that everybody is talking about right now. 2 games so far in the Arizona Fall League, 5 innings, 4 hits allowed, no walks, 1 earned, and 6 strikeouts. Very, very impressive. Fastballs averaging in the mid-90s. Also throws, a cutter, a sinker, a splitter, and a slider. So a big pitch mix, and just everybody's glowing remarks about Luke Sinnard. So and one of their games was on MLB Network the other day. If you want to go see it in their film room database over there, you can go back and watch it. But really good stuff, and another exciting pitching prospect for the Braves. Can't wait to go back and break down some more tape on him. But Jacob Kroger, he was one of the standouts on this podcast all year long, because it felt like he was on our Monday Minors Spotlight segment all season long. He's thrown 3 innings at the AFL, no hits, has walked a couple batters, but no earned runs and 5 strikeouts. So he is continuing his trend from the regular season where he was really, really good. Giancarlo Lara in 3 2/3 innings, 1 hit, 6 walks, but just 1 earned run with 5 strikeouts. Kind of the same old for Lara. A lot of strikeouts, a lot of walks. And so far, at least, hasn't been bit by it too much. Only 1 run allowed, but it's got to get that stuff under control. LJ McDonough, 4 innings, 5 hits, 2 walks, 3 hit batters, 3 earned, and 5 strikeouts. Trent Buchanan, an inning and 2/3, 6 hits, 2 walks, 6 earned, 2 strikeouts. And Corey Wall, an inning and a third, 2 hits, 5 walks, 1 hit batter, 5 earned, 2 strikeouts. So nothing too good so far for those 3 pitchers, but Sinnard, Kroger both look good. Lara showing some of that same promise. Nacho hitting the ball. Kawhi showing the speed. Jarvis showing a little bit of power. So some good stuff there from the Braves prospects in the AFL. I'll keep you updated with that. I don't know if we'll do that every week, but maybe keep it every other week here unless one of them does something major. But that's what's happening so far in the AFL. Next, we'll get into the latest news and rumors, especially on the managerial front. We'll do all of that here next on this episode of Locked On Braves. There's nothing like catching a baseball game alive, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screen, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see, that's the price you pay when you get to the checkout screen. No surprises. Absolutely love that about Gametime. It's the only ticketing app that I use. I used it to go to a couple of Braves games last year. I use it this offseason already to go to a college football game. You just check out where you want to sit. They'll give you the best deals in that in that zone. And it's really just that simple. The tickets delivered to you electronically almost instantly. It's a great app that I use, again, whenever I'm getting ready to go to a game. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Not a ton of news on the Braves front in the postseason. Like I said earlier, Dodgers sitting there waiting on the Mariners and Blue Jays. I recorded this a little bit earlier on a Monday night, so I can go sit down and watch Game 7. It might be the most interesting game left of the season so far. We'll see what happens in the World Series. Hopefully one of these teams can give the Dodgers a little bit of a run and a scare, maybe even and win it all. Who knows? Definitely be rooting for whoever comes out of this Game 7. But on the managerial front, things are starting to heat up a little bit more. Albert Pujols is out as a candidate for the Angels, which a bit surprising. He seemed like the leading candidate for a while there, but now they're saying that he is out of the running. So we'll see. Is that going to go to Kurt Suzuki, Torrey Hunter, somebody else? It sounds like the Padres are now interested in Albert Pujols along with the Orioles. So that will be very interesting because in Albert Pujols' contract that he signed when he was a player, he gets $1 million for like the next 7 years from the Angels. So do they still pay that if he's managing another team? Because it's $1 million to be in some sort of, advisory role just with the team. So does that negate that? That'll be a very interesting bridge to cross whenever we get there. And then Bo Porter looking to manage again as well. So we'll see if he gets into any of these discussions. And then we're still waiting to see what happens with Tony Vitello. I mentioned yesterday that sounded like the Giants were really close to locking up Tony Vitello. It sounds like they've made him an offer, and it's just kind of in his balls in his court at this point. There's been reports that, he's still in Knoxville. He's still going to practices and everything right now as the college baseball teams are currently in their fall practice schedule. So we'll see. It feels like the longer it drags on, maybe he won't be the pick there. Maybe he'll decide to stay in the SEC. Like I said, and why I was never really that high on it being an actual option for the Braves, Tony Vitello is in a really good spot there at Tennessee. He is playing in the best conference in all of college baseball. He's consistently contending. He's making pretty good money. I believe he's making $3 million a year. So there's a lot of reasons for him to want to stay where he is, unless he just has that itch to try to win at the big league level. But he is already in a great spot where he is at the college ranks. So I'd be a little bit surprised if he actually wants to make that jump, but we'll see what happens. All right, that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for joining me here. Andrew Chandler says, I'd like to see Pujols with the young kids in Baltimore. I just don't know about Pujols as a manager. We'll see. He's obviously getting a lot of attention, but I just don't know how he'll be as a manager. He's never one that's struck me as somebody that would be a great manager. I would think Yachty, obviously being the catcher, that's the one that you think of. Pujols, one of the greatest players of all time, no doubt about that. But I've just never viewed him as that manager. So I'm very interested to see what he does with that role. Video Moon says, I'm glad Tony isn't on the Braves list. He's personally would not gel. I don't think so either. And I don't think Tony's style, at least if you try to translate his style from what it is at Tennessee, where they are just the most hated team in college baseball. You don't follow college baseball very closely. If you're not a Tennessee fan, everybody just cannot stand Tony Vitello in Tennessee. I don't know that translates well over to Major League Baseball. Michael Newton says, is Lombard still your top pick? He is. He's still a top pick for me. Glad we haven't really heard him in any rumors for any other team so far, but he is definitely still my top choice. Mass Boost says, if they need to get a quality shortstop, I give up almost any of the pitching prospects. I agree with that. There's nobody that's necessarily untouchable for me on the pitching side. While I am very excited about all those guys, even Cam Caminiti, there's nobody that's untouchable for me if you're getting that young, controllable shortstop. You're trading for a Jordan Lowell or somebody that, could grow into being that stud shortstop for you. I definitely would not hold back either. Protect PR, is that me or is this playoff running flat? The best series has been Philly versus Dodgers. And that was kind of flat too, right? Because the Dodgers took an early 2-0 lead. Phillies made it interesting. I think the wild card series have been the most entertaining so far. But I agree, some of these division series and even these championship series matchups haven't been all that entertaining. Obviously, with the Dodgers sweeping the Brewers. Although those games were entertaining, they were close games, could have gone either way. But once the Dodgers won the first two, especially, even after they won the first one, you felt like it was over. But definitely after they won those first two, you knew there was nothing happening there. This Blue Jays Mariners one has been entertaining. But I'll be honest, I don't get FS1. So when they're not on Big Fox like they are tonight, I haven't been able to watch these games. So I definitely think it's been a little bit of a flat postseason after that first round. All right, again, thanks so much for joining me here on today's episode. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.